I keep clicking the wrong thing. I don't know why, but I keep clicking back into the intro animation. Welcome back to Trails into Reverie. After a bit of frustration with some trial doors last night, I did end up finishing them. Actually, and I can show you something here. As you can see, these three are now max level, right? They were max leveled, given a bunch of quartz, had all their slots upgraded all their weapons and armor, and it was still a struggle to fight Osborne. Like, he's either very, very strong in that trial, or these three are particularly useless. McBurn didn't take too much to do. We just turned him into an evasion tank, essentially. I think he's still equipped for it. Not at the moment. I mean, he's still got some evasion stuff. And that pure passionate rouge. Could that be better on somebody else? I mean, yeah, on Randy, right? It just prevents seal. Pure Passionate Rouge. There we go. Anyway, pretty much sorted to take on whatever's up here. In a 3-team battle. Okay, I mean, I've got to upgrade everybody then. Don't have a whole heap of divine water left. Try to get everybody to 150 at least.
I did it! I'm just that good.
God, I can't... Yeah, I guess we just haven't used Nadia much since then. Huh. It's like I kind of miss
Nice.
the straightforwardness of the different routes and, you know, who we actually had available.
Leveled up. I only get cuter as I level up.
Oh jeez, Estelle's way down here too.
There's more where that came from.
And Ren. Sure, you can just be 151.
It's only natural. Yeah, I did it! I've done it!
Now, is that everybody up to at least 150? I don't think I've missed anybody. In fact, I'm pretty sure that was a mission. Nope, somebody's sitting at 137. Who could it be? It's probably Kurt or somebody, right? I don't know, and I can't see it. No, he's 151. I wish I could sort by a level. You can auto-equip through all this as well. Interesting. Come on, somebody's under-leveled. Who are they? Is it just not updated? Or maybe somebody needs to actually gain a level before it happens. I don't want to mess with it. I can't be bothered at the moment. Yep. Safety save. If I really need to. Yada yada yada. I'm amazed you came all this way. It would have been in your best interest to leave me be. Then we'll have to agree to disagree. We're glad we could finally reach you. Do you want us to keep referring to you as the first 0Z, or would you prefer to go by another name? I have no name. I'm not Kia, nor am I an Orion. I am nothing, have nothing, so it has always been. I am an empty shell, born 500 years ago, and gone without a trace before I could leave a single mark on the world. The same is true even now. I was suddenly recreated here without knowing why. But as I watched this world slowly converge with me at its core, I quickly realized what Elysium was hoping to accomplish. So it's true, Elysium is the reason you came to exist here at all. Though you seem to be more than just a simple recreation of what once was. Exactly, the 0Z series was designed in order to forge a Sword of the End, and that wouldn't serve any purpose now that the Great Twilight has passed. Yet, if we've learned anything, it's that Elysium always realizes something for a reason, so you must have a purpose. I can only think of one other possibility. Your appearance, how could it not elicit a response from us? She was chosen because of how similar she is to Kia. In other words, she was the first iteration of the being created to be the Zero Child. Wait, you can't be serious. This is where all possibilities ultimately lead, the furthest reaches of our world. There are faint traces of one such concept still here, a being that once lamented the tragedies of their own making so dearly. They dissolved their own causality, vanishing from this world. A fragment of fate so small that no one should be able to even detect it. A fragment of fate? A being that dissolved their causality. When Elysium was corrupted, it achieved the impossible by calculating that being's existence and realizing them. It hoped in doing so that it would create a new world with Crossbell at its center, while eliminating all obstacles in its way. Thought so. It all makes sense now. To think this ties back as far back to the ancient Zemurian civilization. So this still connects to everything that the SSS went through 3 years ago. It seems that way. You gotta be real twisted to use a creature like that as your last card. Worse, it's used all the chaos that's in Crossbell to grow even stronger than the original. Right here, with you at the centre. Now we know the root cause behind what's happening in the Reverie corridor. You've probably been trying really hard all this time to keep the problem at bay, haven't you? By using yourself as a key to keep it locked away. I understand now. Indeed, the pieces have fallen into place. And now that we know just what it is we're up against, there's not a moment to waste. As I have told you, your efforts are futile. Balance shall be maintained here so long as I am here to will it. She will never wake up. She will never be able to cause harm to Zemuria. I'll make certain of that. But where does that leave you? You really up for holding off something that almighty for all eternity? There is nothing more for you here. You must leave and return to your own world. For you, this space is naught but a fleeting dream, an illusion. That's how it should be, just as how I should meet a similar end as she did. I am destined to wait here in silence and alone until the end of my days. A dream or an illusion. I think you're right to some degree. But be that as it may, are you content with that? What? It's true that once we're back in the real world, we will forget everything that happened here. But you won't. You'll still be here, eternally suffering for us. Are you content with suffering? That question serves no purpose. None of this should be happening at all. I shouldn't even be in existence. What reason would you ask that of an illusion? Whether you perceive yourself as real or an illusion doesn't matter. I want to know how you feel. You remind me of how I used to be. How all I cared about was completing the task given to me. Nothing else in my world mattered. It was then that someone I cared about asked me what I wanted to accomplish, what kind of future I wanted. You wanted those things to matter to me. You remember, huh? So, when I look at you, it's like looking into a reflection of my own past. You act as though you've accepted this, but is that true, or are you only burying your true feelings deep inside? I can't just leave and condemn you to living in pain forever, not after seeing who you are. Am I content? I don't... It's okay to want things. I also learned that through people I care deeply about. All you have to do is hold out your hand and someone will take it. LP. Huh. Why do you care so much about me? I'm just a replica of a fragment from a long lost history, completely detached from you. You'd be spared so much trouble by choosing to ignore me. Is it because I have Kia's face? Because I'm the first 0Z? It's because we met you, that's all. Now that we know you, you're a part of our lives. And it's perfectly normal to want to help those in our lives. Even if destiny forces us to part ways, I want to at least see you smile once before that happens. Besides, you're not just anything. You're an individual who's hurting. We don't need any other justification to go as far as it takes to help you. Yeah, who you were in the past all comes second to that. We want to do what we feel is right. Exactly, it's always been in line with the principles and goals of the SSS. What makes you think you understand me so well? When did I say I was in need? When did I ask you to think of how I feel? When... But what is this mana? It's resonating with the Flamora grass. Her mental state is causing something to awaken. No, I can't let myself think like this. She's going to wake up. You've been trying to lock away your sense of self this whole time, haven't you? But you don't need to do that anymore. You've suffered long enough. Leave the rest to us. You don't need to shoulder the burden alone anymore. We're here to carry all we can and more. Don't worry. Whatever comes of it, we can handle it. The damage wrought by Elysium was always ours to heal. Speak from your heart, reflection of the Zero Child. Tell us what you truly want. Please, stop me. No, stop her. Set her free. Let her finally be at rest. But what is this overwhelming stream of consciousness? As though it's conveying its very thoughts through pure mana. But this is... We were right. Yeah, on the mark. Doesn't look exactly the same as it did 3 years ago, but there's no doubt in my mind. That's the Demi-Oragos, another of the Septarians. But this isn't like the Septarian or of Zero or the original. It's more an incomplete blend of several causalities woven into one. One must be a distorted version of the Septarian of Mirage's original personality. However incomplete it is, it still houses the power of one of the goddess's gifts. This isn't going to be easy. And yet, we'll still come out victorious. Could easily go out of control at any moment. Watch yourselves. Demiurge.
Anomalies detected. Identify yourselves.
It's time to make a little girl's wish come true, and we won't fail. I'll put all I've become as the final 0Z on the line for this. We will set her free. We have to. This is it. There's no stopping now, so you better be ready. I am. Go on, I believe in you. Fight with everything you got, so we can make it through this.
Hostile intent detected. Those who oppose extinction must be eradicated. Activating defense mechanisms. Commencing eradication.
Alright, teams of equal strength, huh? So let's split everybody up just a little, I guess. Oh, it's going all over the place. Okay, let's get rid of her, she's no good. This isn't an awful team currently. Right, it's got Randy and Lloyd there, which is fine. He's strong as shit, so he should also be fine. Who else do we have here? Doovie, you should be in the team somewhere. Probably there. Now let's throw Crow in there. And Altina in there. Take all of it out and at the very least swap them with Lecter. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, he can't be a tag along because he's already in there. Okay. Shadow Step? What have we got here? That's delay. It's evasion. Damage up. Okay, we'll change them for break damage. That's break damage. Probably want something maybe a little defensive. Yeah, we'll go with that. For magic damage. There we go. Physical damage. Alright, that'll have to do.
Insolent vermin. May the fires of causality reduce you to ash.
Get him! Blast force!
Alright, Randy.
About time
Go
I
and hit
got
it.
this start.
Perfect.
My turn. It's my turn. Yeah. Yeah. Now. Gotcha.
My turn. Search mode activate. Details procured. Let's go.
Alright, who else do we actually have here? Just Laura, right?
Behold, the soul of an Arcade!
I shall go.
What do you weak to? Nothing. Cool.
Charging.
Right. Zero Breaker! I won't let you!
Cease.
Unforgivable!
Going for it. Here I go.
Get him! Blast force!
Okay,
Going
she's a
for it.
little petrified, but... It's on a confirmed crit, so I
About
believe in
time
you,
I got
Randy.
this.
Disappear.
Alright, it's one down. Thanks, Randy, for deleting that one.
That I might again gaze upon the real world.
Ooh.
Infinite fates interweaving. Disorder. Nihility. What a glorious world it is. All who stand before me, raise your voices. Rejoice. I shall drown you in the most beautiful wellspring of despair.
Yeah? Alright.
Not gonna let me down, are ya? More. Give me more of this.
Alright, that's damage reduction. Damage up. Break damage.
Wreak havoc! Chaos Storm! Now it's getting fun.
Time to show off. As your strength, surge! Moving out. It's showtime!
Rejoice.
Sucker!
I feel power boiling over!
Alright, that was a
Not
bit much.
here.
Despair.
Well, okay, those two are down.
I was complacent.
Moving out.
Yes.
Oh wait, you're back up. Yeah, you know what? Swap out for
I leave it
Milliam
to you.
instead.
Let's go, Lemmy!
My thanks.
Sucker!
Can't say I'm a fan
Time
of
to
this
show off.
petrifying that's happening.
Thanks, I guess.
Go in! Here I go!
More. Give me more of this.
Right. I don't remember I have united
Sing my
fronts.
praise.
Sucker!
Foolish.
There!
Time to show off.
Despair.
Time to show off.
Let's see. I'm gonna try and break when we
There.
can.
About time. Now it's getting fun.
Woohoo! Live decoration!
Let's try and keep those other two alive.
Now it's getting fun. Burn to the ground.
Okay! Get him, Lammy! Go!
Alright.
I'll make this simple. Oh. Ha!
All right. Wreak havoc! Chaos storm! All right. All for one?
I'll make this simple. Perish! Now!
An opening!
It's unfortunate that they're
Give me
all the
more
way
of
back
this.
there.
Ha! Got him down.
You're wide open! Moving out. As your strength, surge! Time to show off.
Rejoice.
Oh, there goes Milliam.
Bad.
Back at you!
More. Give me more of this. Got lost.
I believe she's confused. Yeah, she is.
All right.
Thanks!
Sucker. They're down.
About time.
Rejoice.
Good. Too slow. Back at you.
Alright, come on then.
Bad.
Moving out. Oh,
I did the wrong
Guess
one.
it's
I
me.
actually meant to heal.
Not gonna let me down, are ya? More. Give me more of this.
moving out.
Lightning sword!
All right.
Rejoice.
I'll make this simple.
Oh, it's just a perfect reflect. That's fine.
Huh?
Can deal with that.
Thanks!
Moving out. It's showtime! They're down!
About time.
Despair.
Too slow. I'll make this simple. Turn to dust! Prismatic flame!
Now it's getting fun.
Wreak havoc! Chaos storm!
Now it's getting fun.
Alright. Come on,
Mind if
McBurn.
I turn up the heat?
Prove why you're the strongest.
This one's a scorcher! Incandescent hellfire!
You can at least do this much, right, McBurn? Yeah,
May
you can.
destruction
Good.
befall you.
Now it's time for the evasion tank turn. Alright, we can just skip this, honestly, if we could.
Why do you not wish? Why choose freedom?
Kinda wish I had Randy.
Wish not for the bliss of eradication, and eradication shall be forced upon you. Activating eradication protocols. Be gone from existence. Increasing output. More power required. May I see to the destruction and rebirth of all humans of the post-Zemurian age.
Now we have something that recharges assault gauge, right? Is that something? No, not assault gauge, just BP.
Shimmer! Luminary force!
And scope it, why not?
Sing my praises.
Alright, that's rude.
May destruction befall you.
I'm up. Enlightened spirit unification. I'm up. Roar. It's down.
Mine! Showtime.
Alright, Fee, just get right up there. Wait, does that actually teleport it forward? It does.
Alright.
Good, okay.
Alright. Slay on sight. Criminals reign. I'll take care of it.
Okay, let's just get all the way over there.
There!
Rejoice.
Weak! It's down.
Got him.
Take that!
All right. Cut you down.
At this rate... Answer my...
Alright, just to make sure.
Weak! Now!
Got him.
Despair.
Weak! Now!
Got him. All right.
Emma's fine back there, honestly.
Thanks.
I'll restore you!
Thank you.
Oh, we got a Zero Craft coming up on Emma, even.
Oh!
Simpleton. All right.
Okay, hang on. What orders do we have?
All right. Cut you down!
Answer my plan.
Here we go. Free reflex and HP recovery.
Fool! All right.
Foolish.
It's down!
It's mine. At this rate,
Alright, that's right, we want her to have
Arcus activate.
a bunch of stuff, right?
I'll restore you.
Thank you.
Or a low health, I should say. She does more damage that way.
There.
Perk up!
Thank you.
I'll take care of it.
It's my turn. Ah.
Rejoice.
Simpleton!
Oh, Emma.
Sorry, everyone.
All right. Arcus, activate.
Thank you.
Rejoice.
That's perfect
On guard.
reflex. Yeah.
May destruction befall you.
All right.
I'll restore you.
Thank you. All right. Cut you down! All right. Hold out! Black Tortoise! All right. Blade of Darkness. Tear them asunder! How
Really
plain.
like for Ring to actually get a turn again.
Back tenfold!
Despair.
All right. I shall leave this to you.
Leave it to me! Time barrier?
I'm next. Yeah.
Let's go! Roar! Healing strike! Now!
Here we go.
Mine.
Jeez. Have to get Muckius out here just to accelerate.
Aw. Weak. It's down.
Got him!
I won't forgive you!
showtime.
Here we go. Broken. Finally.
I'm up. Fiercest fire! Blazing swarm! Let's go! For one, and one! Let's go, everyone!
Alright, Ring.
Eternally flowing.
I'm next.
Hold out! Black Tortoise!
I'm next. 3, 2. Done. Answer my...
I just want Muckius to go away now.
Just there.
Come on, Muckius. Shoot.
Leave it
Oh,
to
it's
me!
your turn, finally. Okay.
Switch with me! I accept. Cut you down! It's my turn! Ha! It's down!
Mine.
Why did you awaken me?
Okay.
Give me rest. 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 Give me rest.
I'm next.
Are you going to enhance?
I'm next. Wiping out.
Sing my praise.
Weak. It's down.
Got him! Back tenfold!
Take that.
I'm up! Roar! Healing strike! Now!
Attack. I'm next.
Oh wait, no, she's over the threshold now.
Move away! Zephyr Tempest! Got you. 3, 2. Done. It's down. Attack. Answer my prayer.
It's a 0 craft, so that's a free reflect at least.
On guard. Cut you down! Outplane.
Attack.
Just there.
Simpleton.
I'm next.
Ready yourselves! Valiant move!
I'm next. 3, 2.
try and break it then.
Done.
On guard. These swords are of the...
That was a big break.
All right.
Sing my praises. Despair.
Nice. Cool. Ah, he really disordered
Let's go.
me. Okay.
Enlightened spirit unification! I'm up!
We can outsmart this, right?
Huh. I'm up! Ha! It's my turn!
Right, we can't use that. We can use this.
Roar! Healing strike!
Okay, broken.
Yeah.
Albion Wolf.
Perk up!
Thank you. It's my turn. There.
Okay, we should be able to just keep hitting it really quickly.
Perk up!
Thank you. Showtime. Now.
Got him! Let's go! Initiate Omega Operation! It's my turn! Cut through! It's down!
Mine. I'm going. Yeah.
Jeez, Emma, how are you going?
It's my turn.
Let's go! Ha! Now!
Mine. Yeah.
And that should finish it off. This is a crit after all.
At last. I am now free from this twisted causality.
Yeah, okay, so it's a max of 3 levels you can go up at any one point in time.
Your efforts from the other side of the distant void made this so.
Oh, that's bright. Oh my god.
Thank you for granting my wish. Now I may finally be at rest.
We did it. It wasn't easy, but yeah. Though I'm not so sure we would have been so lucky had it been at its full power. I think drawing out her true feelings was what helped us win. I believe that as well. Oh. Are you free? I am. The connection between us has been completely severed. So it would seem. I'm in awe of what you have just achieved. Who are you people? We're nothing special, really. We're just people fighting for what we believe in. I wasn't feeling so hot about our chances for a second, to be honest. Me too. We had to throw all we had at her, and even then we only just scraped through. Ugh, me three. I think I'll just clock out right here if you don't mind. I do mind. What a pitiful sight. You ought to try and follow my example. Not everyone was born with a body incapable of feeling fatigue. I wish I knew what it was like. What an unconventional group you are. I'm so glad I chose to believe in you. Rather, I am so glad you let me choose. I hope I was able to make my predecessor proud. You most certainly did. I feel nothing but happiness to have been given the chance to meet you. Oh no. Are we out of time? I am a shadow of what was. Now that my thread to this world has unravelled, I must return to where I came. I cannot thank you enough for what you did for us, for setting both me and her free. This is so strange. I never thought leaving this place would make me feel sad, but it does. Aw, gonna miss us? We were able to touch her heart then, meaning the battle was even more worth fighting. Now the Septarion that weaves destiny itself will forever be out of all's reach. Humanity may now begin to carve its own path through the great unknown. Even if you won't remember that once you leave this place. In that sense, do you feel any regret that your efforts will be for nothing? But it wasn't for nothing. We were able to fix all the problems caused by Elysium. Yeah, we accomplished everything we set out to do. There's no such thing as existence without purpose. All we did here, you being alive, all held meaning. Meeting you made me so happy that I hope that maybe one day we can meet again. I would like that very much. I chose a new purpose for myself the day Elysium was deleted and my life was spared. Whatever comes, I have no regrets with my decision. My purpose is to keep following the light, however dim it may appear to be at times. That's the path we, believe in for all of us, so I don't regret a thing either. And none for me. There's no room for regrets in this journey we've already started. Will you do me a favour and keep watching over us? Your little sisters have built a bright future that we want you to see. I will. I'll be watching you from the land of dreams, as you share with me your world of endless possibilities. She's gone. Even her smile was a lot like Kido's. It really was. I'm glad we got to see it before she went away. The pressure sure is on now though, huh? Oh, I wouldn't worry too much about that. We'll just keep walking our path one step at a time. It's all progress, yeah. I think this space, no, the entire corridor is disappearing.
Correct. Confirming that the obstruction located beyond the horizon of the other space is no longer present. The Black Mirror has now claimed full administrative command over processes concerning the Reverie Corridor. No continued attempts to interfere with causality detected. The Reverie Corridor has served its purpose. Time is 1,238 hours, 21 minutes, 45 seconds since forced reactivation. The Black Mirror may now shut down permanently.
Azoth. That makes it really over then. There was so much we had to overcome, but we never backed down for a second. It's worth keeping on until the very end. It was. We gained so much from this that ordinary training could never have given us. That and more. We should all be proud of what we have achieved here. I wish to express my gratitude as well. Your support gave me this time to act as a holy beast once more. We're always here for you, Zeit. And you were just as much our support, you know. Sorry, but I'm still in disbelief that we defeated a being of that scale. It's a miracle that we mortals were able to come out the victor, a miracle owed to each of us having stood up. So thank you all for fighting with me. I would also like to thank you all for the very same thing. I'm honestly a bit reluctant to leave this camaraderie behind. Even you, Rufus. Sounds like we all feel the same way about each other. Knowing that makes me sad the mutual feelings will be lost once we return to reality. We're all quite aware of that. You could let us bask in the glow a bit more. Well, time for us to say farewell. Yes, there's no more delaying the lives we have to return to. For all the many trials we endured, I had such great fun with all of you. Just remember, even if our memories fade, the effects of our actions won't. So long as we continue being ourselves, we'll be doing right by her. Knowing now that we'll be able to show her our everyday lives makes this a happy thing, not a sad thing. And if we keep it up, I'm sure she'll... just gotta keep living our lives, and all the good stuff will come. It's the best possible way to celebrate the bonds we've forged. Analysis on humanity's potential is not within my parameters. However, it is curious that forged bonds are what awarded it strength exceeding that of even calculated predictions. Accessing Reverie Corridor Management System, converting database into format that can be maintained in Zemuria. Huh? What are you saying? Experiences within the Reverie Corridor cannot be perceived outside of it in an identical manner. It is, at most, possible to store them within you as a form of a dream. I believe there would be value in doing so. A dream? You can do that? Wait, but wouldn't that mean... Do you mean we'll remember what happened here? Oh wow, no idea how that works, but I'll take it. It's much better than forgetting it completely. Much better. I didn't want to say it, but I was with Laura when she said it made her sad. Had to throw that one out at the last minute to give a real fairy tale ending feel to this, huh? I'm guessing if it'll be like a dream, the details will be a little fuzzy on us. Perhaps, but it's a lovely compromise to ensure the experience stays in our hearts. I'd top that for a parting gift. We are forever in your debt for all the guidance you've given us. Yeah, we really are. Even if I can't help but wonder why you decided to do this all of a sudden. Oh. Perhaps she must have been active for much longer than she was designed to be. Certainly, for over 1,000 years, it astonishes me that she lasted this long. Yet now we bear witness to the ancient endless vigil of Erebonia coming to an end. Though I am an Arnor, I'm at a loss for what to say. May you find peace with the end of your long journey. Modifications to causality have been repaired where possible. The contract with the first Arnor has been fulfilled. Upon termination of all Reverie Corridor processes, all visitors shall awaken from their dream.
With this, the long chapter between the Empire and Western Zemuria has come to a close. Yet know that as this danger passes, a greater one looms in its stead. I expect never to reactivate, but my hope is that humanity, joined by their bonds, will make a meaningful choice when the time comes.
Azoth. Thank you for everything. Hey, there's that picture I was using for thumbnails. Oh, thank you for playing. See you again in S1208. Special sealing stone you just obtained. You can also re-challenge it if you want. Alright. You're really giving me master missions for this, huh? What does the Genesis Orb do? Wow! 50% evasion and 50% magic evasion. Damn, that would give you like... You can build that to complete immunity. Alright, let's see what this white sealing stone is.
Sealing stones unsealable.
Beyond the Reverie is now available. You know what that means. Ahaha, it's the best
Rendering
part.
browsing interface.
Hope this one's voice acted. Just a little. There are but minute fragments of memories drifting in an endless ocean, memories of what will be in the near future. They could be shadows of the tangled threads woven by Elysium, or could they be, or perhaps faded illusions that slip through the cracks of time and space. There are none who know the answer. January 1208. Between two great mountains at the tip of a Calvarian basin sits Long Lie. Town is known for two things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs, though these enticing factors does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad. Yet today it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Erebonia. The depth of flavour in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed, the Phoenix Wings food is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but I have my doubts that the chef could replicate dishes this unique in taste. The Mission's Inn reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Teo and Lady Lucia Swartzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. Their daughter, Elise, sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison as her brows furrowed with concern. I'm sure its luxuries come with an equally luxurious price tag, and there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. I didn't mean to damper the mood. I know we have money, but all my budgeting as student council president has made a terrible habit of me seeing the numbers in everything. Her older brother, Reen, couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster and you will like how much we saved, because we're not here as paying customers, we're invited by the owners personally. They said they wanted to get to know us since we run similar establishments, so here we are. And of course we'll be inviting them to Ymir sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. Add this to the list of boons coming from other countries finally coming to terms with one another. The Republic is reveling in unheard of levels of prosperity, and the relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I for one welcome any opportunity to further foster friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his Baijui before continuing. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. It's all the more reason we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. The children nodded in agreement. And even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Ooh, I read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying here. Would you like to share some with me, Ring? In a bit. I'm thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food's here delicious, but as far as I'm concerned, the hot springs are the real star of the show. Haha, that's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Reen, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone to the width of his smile. The medicinal springs happen to be a favourite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can believe it, I've always known about them, but here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we could make one available at the Phoenix Wings. Be worth a try, but that comes with its own obstacles. As for the many problems, as Teo expressed in practical terms, Reen held just as many proposed solutions. Conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies of the house to pleasantly bask in the glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All four felt the same, that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the springs, and telling his family he was going for a walk, Reen departed the inn. Alright, let's do this. He took in a deep breath, the crisp night air of long life filling his lungs. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. He had come in search of Yun Ka-Fai, the famed sword hermit. Master Ka-Fai was the founder of the Eight Leaves One Blade School, of which Reen was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since before Reen's enrollment at Thor's. Many a letter was exchanged during the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Reen earned the right to call himself Divine Blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the Eight Leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that have nothing to do with swordsmanship too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sort, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Ren's ears. The man held a fondness for the town's specialities, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew that the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of his more plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwartzes were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Ren's instincts told him the timing was a little too fortunate, but with how vague the lead was, even it would likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed the rumour being key to his travelling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than a simple pleasure trip for him. I know Dad would have a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. These thoughts in mind, Ren made his way through the night streets. Long Lai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvard's towns and cities. This was not to say it was similar to Crossbell's East Street. With subtle colours paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more. This too held a traditional sort of charm. Ren asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from the stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make excellent gifts for his friends, his co-workers, and his students. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. I might be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Ren would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. Their first year had been eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for each other. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Ren's students continued to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up to now had been well worn, and, while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. As their second year grew to a close, lacking in grandiose events but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him the most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again next year and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking. Realizing this, he resumed his search, paying respect and mind to the many generations of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Ka-Fai in Long Lai. It was, however, still too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Ren was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he departed for his new destination. The mountain's winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off limits as such. The key, Ren knew, would be to not rely on sight alone. His senses of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of simple tutelage between student and master, but it equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now, with some days requiring him to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to find the day's food to survive. Sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise a long time ago. Ren was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of their presence behind that no wild creature could, be it a long dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One need only follow the like to lead to their source. Ren did so, advancing with caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No, didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters, but most peculiar thing was that there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large in scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here. Ren advanced. Soon after, he found another unusual mound of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through. All further inspection here suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavour, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And, if they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountain certainly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. If I keep following this trail a little further... At this thought, Ren sensed someone approaching. One person. 2 people. Yes, there were 2, and it was clear they were as aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension that now thickened the air told him these were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well, and then he felt them stop. How about you show yourselves? He spoke without placing his hand on his touchy, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. Their silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the east he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. I see your insight poses a threat after all, Divine Blade of the Empire. The contract with our client has yet to begin, but we will make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons. The Silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Ren's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in the same moment he was in a fighting stance, hand over his still sheathed Tachi. Fifth form, Morning Moon. He perceived the direction of his foe's attacks to evade them, then mounted a counter-attack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave him vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Ren could do was stare at the two with disbelief. The thought entered my mind when I saw you move, but now that we've crossed blades. He paused, the disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. Are you practitioners of the Eight Leaves School? Another pause, this time from the Silhouette before answering, as though they were well aware the question was coming. No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are of the Ikaruga, practitioners of the Black God One Blade School. The what? Ren was left stunned. The two Ikaruga held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. Definitely need water. Ikaruga, huh? It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, he would not be so fortunate twice. Ren responded by assuming the middle stance with his Tachi. But just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle. What could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the darkness, at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. Its appearance caught Ren by surprise more than the initial attacks of the Silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even that moment. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade, over an arch and a half in length, was heading directly for Ren's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed, perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the Divine Blade of the Empire would soon fall. The Silhouettes waited in his final moments to be convinced of no other fate in his future. When Ren spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his Tachi from the motion to the swing. The blow made was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction, without mitigating its near overpowering force. This technique was an application of the first form, Helix. There was no greater course in the movement than to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making direct contact. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course, but Ren slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying years to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it mid-air. You may have only recently taken the title, but you are worthy of being called a Divine Blade all the same. You used the unclouded eye well. From his hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the Silhouettes, the thing about his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body, covering a fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation. And the faint light of his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles than was possible to count. Fall back, he is too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouette slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Reen. I need to know, who are you and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. The tone was not one of advice nor one of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact, his calmness veiling an undertone of malice that told Reen what would happen if he did not do it as was told. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation, not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand. Then there was no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kuragane of the Rogetsu school, shall be your opponent. Kuragane stood at attention. The large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I would have rather settled this with words, but I can see that's not an option. Ren sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Ren Swartzer, master of the 8 Leaves One Blade's 7th form, shall be yours. The Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kuragane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it was a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close range combat. Kuragane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand, either, meaning that if Ren could force him to fight where he would be at his most disadvantageous, he would very likely come out of this the victor. That was what he had in mind when choosing to act first. Second form, Gale. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade and made a wide swing towards his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kuragane blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Ren knew well this man's capabilities. So long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault, Kuragane had split his cross-shaped shuriken in half. The ease at which he did made it clear this was intended by design. He can dual-wield double sabers. There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person Ren knew who was competent with one, and only one. The skill it would take to use two was almost too difficult to fathom. The surprise created an opening that Kuragane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing 2 twin-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Ren, giving him no chance to push back. Steel sparked as their weapons clashed. Kuragane was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Ren. This was in due part to him being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for, the perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have, something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he also used them as a shuriken, but the length of Kuragane's sabers were even shorter than Crow's, meaning Ring would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kuragane's reach and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kuragane's frequent rapid attacks, meaning all Rin had to do now was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent, showing impatience for this stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Rin evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. The forceful swing of his tachi made contact with the handle of Shiragane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Rin dashed forward to make use of this veiled opportunity, but only after a flicker of bewilderment Kuragane moved to deny him. He blocked Rin's attack with the double saber still in his position, then hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Very good Divine Blade of the 8 leaves. You may pale to the skills of our princess, but you, without a doubt, deserve your reputation. Princess? Rin's intonation when unanswered as Kuragane took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect for you, your skill with my finest technique. This put Rin staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eyes on whatever was to come of Kuragane, who was now gone. Nothing remained where Rin's opponent had just stood. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kuragane was nowhere to be seen. How? How would he move that quickly? Was it some kind of spatial translocation? But there were no signs to indicate either one. Was it just he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The double star saber Rin had repelled to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Rin suppressed the panic welling up within him, honing his senses a second time. That was when another black cyclone swirled towards him from the shadows. He half expected something of this nature, so with little deviation he was able to deflect it as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Shirogane had reassembled his shuriken after recovering its last half so he could throw it again. It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Rin needed a little more time to know where he was for certain. But ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him yet again from a new angle. That was fast, though he blocked this attack as well as the last. Before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. There was another. The time was shorter, and another, shorter. Soon these assorted smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death, with Rin trapped at its center. This doesn't feel like him being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? He had no idea where the next cyclone would form, and by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Kuragane's location. He'd been able to repel every blade that met with his so far, but that was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Rin took his mind off the battle. Gave up blocking and evading, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power that he had long cultivated inside of him. The power that he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification. He imbued his Tachi with the great power surging out of him, crying out as he did so, and spinning his body forcibly around to create a bladed circle around him. The energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them Kuragane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded into nothing. With that, there you are. He charged towards Kuragane. The man was thoroughly overwhelmed by Rin's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Rin swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his might into a final, single strike. But just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end, Zero would form. Duality. Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell, was a slash tearing through the sky, its colour so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. It effortlessly stopped Ren's weapon from reaching its target. But that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Ren's beloved Tachi was sundered cleanly in two. Princess? Kuragane was so taken aback by this new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. You could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words, as she chided Kuragane, indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Rin made to see who this mysterious figure was. Ooh. Taking a screenshot of this. Damn, that's good. I like that. I should figure out how to draw and paint like this. And the sight of her alone took his breath away. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Ren's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, appearing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. It was the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How she was both and neither at once, Ren could not understand. But it was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. In the woman's left hand was a large black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Ren's Tachi's moment ago. What did... Ren fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked down upon it. Your weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it up towards the night sky, to seemingly display it with pride. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep grey that, while he could not discern its meaning, there and then he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted its body without feeling out of place. This juxtaposition, in a sense, was much a reflection of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive, yet also as one. Ring thought as he observed, her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected to the 8 leaves in some way, and the skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. He was so fixated as these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I would ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place, or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke and her familiarity with Ring gave him a theory. That technique you used was really something. Consider me intrigued. It's put you a league above, more interesting than our senior practitioners. So he was right. Are you... But before he could hear what he already knew, she had turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run on back to your family and go make the most of your vacation. Don't let your skill with a blade slip. The world will need it again one day. She spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to another half of his broken blade and then leaped high, seemingly disappearing on the other side of the moon. Ring could only stare, dumbfounded, as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Kuragane left with her. The Ikaruga, the Black Gold One Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Ring had been unable to fulfill his objective, and not just that, he was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered and the mountain itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to this specific place, but how important it was or what it entailed he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken touchy, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized that, now with his master was confirmed to be elsewhere, the purpose of his visit to Longlai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful ordinary vacation with his family. His meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence. For now, at least. When I get back, I'll need to reforge my touchy, and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard, but there was nothing he could do about that as he was. All he could focus on was training and bettering himself so that he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. New resolve, welling in his soul, he made his way through the now still mountain trail back to where his loving family awaited. Another hot springs paradise. Alright, give me a moment. I've been holding this one for a bit. Need to pee. Pee. Alright. Bladder empty. Coffee made. Getting comfortable. Didn't expect these to actually be so long. April 1208. Aramis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. This was also reflected in its goal of nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The Academy placed great value on traditional education, of course, but it also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across Cimmeria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the springtime festival held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the Academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds. Then, one of them, in particular, happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. The young lady had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and yet her face still held traces of girlhood days bygone. The beauty she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strolled along. "Oh, Ren. Oh, look at you, grown up." Her name was Ren Bright. She was a second-year student from Genus Royal Academy in Liberal, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. She had only just arrived in the spring. Ren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She had been considered highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past. There was little more a new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal in reality was to use it as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She'd already found her role relatively foolproof during her time at Genus. Even if there were limits to how much a student could get away with, society as a whole was soft on school children. To move freely would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She aimed to conduct herself modestly, as any elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should during her time at Aramis. There was just one very big problem with this plan. "Good morning, Miss Bright. Isn't she just gorgeous? See, look at her. She's so beautiful, and everyone says she's just that smart too." All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were already enough to make her the talk of the school, but after one of the teachers let slip that she received perfect scores on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. The other students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention. She was getting it whether or not she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity of this new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Ren's arrival that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing audible tuts of displeasure. Ren had yet to be enrolled in any clubs, so as soon as the day's lessons had come to an end, she packed her belongings and stood to leave. "A word, if I may, Miss Bright." It was a fellow classmate, surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their king bee. Certainly. Though instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady. I've been wanting to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald Griffith, it's an unfortunate surname, Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Rin was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made up some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps. This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ronald was a persistent one. Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant, so that we could discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait? There was something ominous about his smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. I'm afraid it can't. I'm so sorry after you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead in time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here if that's all right. So not tonight then. A pity. Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more of irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. Now it's better than ever, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it's all for the better said here. To this, Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackeys were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home, or in their respective clubs, or some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour. She was certain none wanted anything to do with Roland and his group. He took a step forward, then began to speak. I'm well aware, Miss Bright, that you have come all the way from distant Liberal to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. But I hear in your case you've come to Calvar just to learn in these hallowed halls. Cannot help but deeply admired your spirit and thirst. Geez, okay, someone needed to proofread. Theatrics, this one. Pure theatrics, even. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be a terribly lonely and challenging affair. We all need someone to depend on in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. So if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you. But at least he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. In short, you would like for me to join your circle of friends, correct? Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage. Ever since joining the academy, Roland has used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcibly building his reputation until he was leading candidate of the student council president in the election stage in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to further secure his chances of victory. I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student. True, she mused inwardly. Being in a group of social standing would make it easier for her to gather information. If she could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own, that would pay its health in dividends in the days to come. The pompous boy had no way of knowing the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was, in fact, very beneficial to her. She returned his smile with a modest one of her own as she answered, "You kinda think so much of me, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline." Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her to answer the opposite. "Are you sure you won't reconsider, Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as yourself can see why accepting my offer would be in your best interests. I fear if you don't, now you may well come to regret it." The last words were a hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. I'll admit it is a tempting proposal, tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election. If only that someone weren't you. What did you just say? The sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. "I imagine you don't need me to explain why, but I will to be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I always attract on the way to school every morning have been coming from all of you. You've been a constant in my life ever since before the festival." All were flabbergasted by the statement, their silence confirming what she said to be true. She continued, "Now, you have every right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under your own wing is a strategically sound move, too. However, your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded." With a shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. "Good day to you all." Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide-eyed and open slack jaws she left behind. So Agate ended up getting plenty beat up from another of Mum's crazy jobs she threw at him. We did get some good data out of it, but ouch. Your mum's always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in a deep conversation through their laptops. Aw, even Tita's growing up. Look at her, she's so big. Oh man, I was just getting nostalgic, thinking about like the first introduction to Ren in Sky. Just so small, so cute. But it's always same old with all of you. I'm surprised there's anything of Agate left with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut. I know, something that could spice things up. Maybe try adding a little romance to the mix, like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know. But we have agreed to go somewhere next week, so we're not in a complete rut. Oh, isn't that something? The stairs to adulthood await you, my dear friend. Ren? Tita graduated from the branch campus in Erebonia just as Ren left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend with one another in person. It wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week so they could stay in each other's lives. They discussed anything from their new lives and the environments to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. Sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know, I can't believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. A recent development concerning the Calvadian India industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them of late. It began soon after Crossbell returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover of the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Zumerian Tech Union that she had been hard at work forming, and to no one's surprise, they refused. But before Erica and the rest of her engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Verne's mind, something happened to make the Union the least of anyone's priorities. The independent development of a new generation of ornaments, and their generation's long partner in the subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter had been key supporters of Zemuria's orbital development and orbital technology in general since their very inception. Battle ornaments were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Reinford Company, before the Battle of Jormungandr, had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favouring to develop them in partnership with a storied institute. The announcement was, quite simply, unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves through the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to this technology, the greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, but when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were preparing for what could only be an ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Verne has the upper hand if this ever makes it to court. Unlike their previous Ramda ornaments, the 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features are packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. I wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Though I have heard about the government telling the Verne Company to focus more on weapons development. I have too. It sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is that they're planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapons development, then they're still just as powerful, maybe more so. As part of the war's ceasefire agreement, Erebronia was required to downsize their military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvard's. Yet, if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in superpowers would quickly be broken. Whatever may be true, I've got a lot of questions I need answers to. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Verne Company's headquarters in Basel at some point. You haven't learned anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Nothing new or concrete, at least. It sounds like she's continuing her research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mum and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised since that area isn't very well connected, but it's still unfortunate. She's a lot more personable than Professor Smith, so having her on our side would help a lot. Tita could only laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of worrying stories going around about how PMCs and stuff like that. Makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Vern Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita could feel her spirits sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity. She could not shake the feeling that this peace was built over rotting wood, and that it would all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields. So rapid, in fact, that no base could reasonably or possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. Try not to dwell too much on the worst case scenario, Tita. This piece might rest on a nice edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. We could find a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The words filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Alright, good night, Tita. Night. Oh! Tita suddenly remembered something. The exclamation stopped Ren just as she was about to end the call. Estelle and Joshua told me to ask if you're doing okay in school. Those two always worry too much. You'd think I wasn't talking to them too. She couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald after class, but Ren quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy. Everything is fine. Good. They wanted me to let them know if you were being bullied so they could fly over and help. Ren could only sigh. Honestly, do they think I can't keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said they were more worried about what you would do to them rather than what they'll do to you. At her friend's silence, Tita couldn't help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if that were to happen to me, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need the magnanimity to forgive the transgression of others. I'm also trying to do what I can avoid avoid standing out too much at school. You can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really going to go before I remember anything else. Say hi to Zen for me if you run into him. I'm planning to go and see him when everything calms down here, so will do. I've been meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past too. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given way to the next. The morning dawned, yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw near from behind her. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before, but her momentum showed no signs of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. "Are you alright? You aren't hurt, are you?" Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl whose face had become quite red quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. You're Ren Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me." "You're very welcome. But I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to a staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of?" The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. "Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously, no one here would do that, so I must have bumped into someone by accident." She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. However, the situation had deemed her imagination, linked in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We could have been badly hurt. Was it really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter, she didn't have anything to support this theory, but it came with a familiar sensation, the feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for her next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Try as she did to open them, it was a lost cause to get even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Ren was sitting, Ronald Griffith and his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves, their eyes mockingly focused on Ren all the while. They're not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it to intimidate me. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were, because she refused to join their group. Her existence was, in their eyes, now nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join, or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter that Ren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further inspecting the state of her textbooks, Ren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. The bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Ren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behaviour. "Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us." Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Ren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Ren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word. All the while, her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book?" Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise in preparing for my lessons. Ren responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Ren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with a horde of other students and was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upwards, noticing a portion of the fencing surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. The other students noticed it at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries that they could do nothing about. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but the fencing was over 2 arcs in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upwards at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply cancelled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. This is no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was the distinct scent of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling a deliberate action the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident, and with Ren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa, that was awesome! Did you see that? Is there anything she can't do? Ren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Roland's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. State of affairs continued for several more days before, seemingly out of patience, Roland summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him, with the composure he attempted to feign before now replaced by a plain, vile anger. Let me give it to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even that gentlemanly ear he impersonated before was gone. Really? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Don't try to act cute and innocent. I put too much damn time and merit into building my position up at this academy, but who's always taking the center of attention instead? It's you. It's always you. It's like you deliberately trying to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Roland became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much of attention. This being pointed out caused Roland to return an audible tut of frustration. Who cares about how it happens? The point is, this has gone on long enough, so I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Roland seemed to present some kind of initial call from when they Roland seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered, "Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse..." To this he raised a hand, and in response, his lackeys stepped forward to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, you'll just have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. His lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Well, that's no good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching in a place like this, and even if something did happen to see, my father is a politician. He can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in deference to my position, that is, everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. His smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped Ren. "Oh, I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I said I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but he needs to be taught a good hard lesson." Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. "Now, do as I say." His lackeys drew closer, readying to seize her. "I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them, just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle Joshua would object to that." No, Estelle would have already hit them with a stick. The big stick. The ultra-violent stick. But, just as she was about to act... "Stop this at once," a girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school's building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. "And who are you?" Ronald was visibly irritated. Though the girl appeared to be visibly nervous, she continued to stand her ground. I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. "You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong." The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from the schoolyard bullies. As she did, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing, however, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the front line for someone else's. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. "Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have you to show me the error of my ways. Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume. I'm going to need to give you a lesson and just how right and wrong works in our society." Upon his signal, his lackeys shifted to surround their new target over Ren. She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. "Don't you dare." This time it was Ren who spoke up. "I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her." But... Are you sure about that? She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. "I'll stay away from school for a while. That's what you want, right? But then you..." The experience of studying abroad has been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest. Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. Good, now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourself lucky now that I've decided to let you go. Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackeys following suit. Good day to you then. When next we meet, the school will all be mine. And then he was gone. With only the girls left behind, this the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. I really am all right. You're very kind to worry. Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for the long-awaited Student Council election. Aramis Academy as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such, the Student Council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed on them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole planner for the Academy's festival, a symbol of and celebration of spring in the capital. This, however, also led to the position being a major status symbol even long after graduation. All of this is why a large number of students put their names forward to become Student Council President every year. Yet this year, a great majority of most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and the others associated with him on the ballot. Couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling among themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with that same silver tongue he inherited well from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen. The screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. This was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere. It was installed several years prior for use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvard was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Roland intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not just a simple makeshift self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather a professional work he paid a considerable amount of merit for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. The musical number it played was rousing, fitting. What followed then was Roland appearing on screen. So how much merit do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while. What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body, it was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents a few days before. Hushed whispers of confusion spread through the auditorium, the next clip played. If you know what's good for you, you'll withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed. Next was an equally unexpected scene of Roland intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out there had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in an attempt to quell the situation. This is all a forgery. Someone is attempting to frame me. But just that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. I'm afraid it's entirely genuine. Her voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked and walked slowly towards the stage. Bribing, potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, and even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You were guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, the student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had made the air of a protagonist from some epic tale, making her long-awaited appearance. Damn it, Ren Bright, must you insist on getting in my way at every turn? He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ren responded with brilliant composure. You are the one getting in the way of the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have made a mockery of the whole process. Ren then turned from Roland to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes alongside the still running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence. But by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion: anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from the other students followed in rapid succession. Yeah, she's right, stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far. Ren's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of Aramis had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behaviour. They only hadn't spoken out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now they realized that he could be stopped. Their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the centre of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. It then dawned on him just how fragile he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred at Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she left for the gates it was already evening. Yet, even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one is going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. You don't keep very good company outside of school now, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something. I'm going to wipe that smug smirk right off their face for good, Ren Bright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, but now you've gone and ruined everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine, or are you so small a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. That's it, I don't care what it takes. You're going to pay for thinking you can cross me and get away with it. Have at her, there won't be any consequences for going too far, my father will see to that. The men sprang into motion upon Ronald's signal, but what followed made them doubt their eyes. Ronald could not understand what had just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second he had ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless cornered mouse, except in this shocking case, Ren was the cat and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumbled with their bodies. The mice had made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, one by one, one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he just witnessed as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little fun. Oh, but don't you worry, I didn't actually slaughter them. She turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me. My father is in Parliament, you know. Try anything on me, and you'll regret it. Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? At first, he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith suspected of bribery and connections to organised crime, read the headline, in giant punchy lettering. There's a whole special feature on Your Dearest Daddy, complete with evidence. It mentions that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No. So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. So, now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again, would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand and sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me. Then you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it down before realizing what she said. Oops, a grown woman wouldn't play with dolls though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this behaviour befitting the proper lady, she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see that he was already unconscious. Finished? As she left the park, a young calm man called out to her. I certainly am. Rin met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. You really are something. In what way? In every way, even if I was more struck by the hacking capabilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angela Slaughter. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on his bigwig dad that easily. Rin's response was matter of fact, showing no sign of praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't as cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be, understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you're dealing with leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. You make it sound like you've tried before. Maybe you have. Maybe I have. Rin's smile was both cryptic and endearing. I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing, while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. I'm glad Grace introduced us. Just doing my job. The man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. He was extremely capable of his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. Oh, my throat's going raw. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Rin made a deal with one another just a few days prior. The terms were simple. Dingo would provide Rin with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Rin would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Now, both were now reaping the rewards of the other's success. Though, I'll admit that I did get some help from a friend. He was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh, you just have all kinds of connections, don't you? She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. That just goes to show how big a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it's going to get. That does sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. That's right. The old Bracer Guild leader is the head of the CID right now, isn't she? I remember now. All those little side characters from games and games and games and games ago. What's up with my tracking? What's going on with you? Yeah, go there. Ooh. There we go. Can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Dingo then made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Rin glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground of the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to teach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but it was then that the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. She then let out a titter that was most refined. As Ren expected, the allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in too long. One thing, however, came about this that Ren had not expected in the least. Here are all the documents relating to next month's budget. Student Council's new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, pursuing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. This was because they were all in favour of someone who never had put her name on the ballot, Ren Bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Roland was going to present dire problems in the future. The teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position as Student Council President. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. Wonder if this is how the Thor's Branch campus first Student Council President felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it when Tita told me. Alright, it is what it is, I suppose. I just have to make use of this as best I can. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and the two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and the occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems aspiring from rapid technological development. The society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard. But despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. Let's say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party, The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time. It was just another ordinary, beautiful, bright afternoon. Alright, who's this one about then? September 1207. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran braces in Thathic could not hide his disappointment, puffing out his bottom lip with a sigh as he stood before me. Not again. You've got to resign yourself to the inevitable one of these days. I'd been indebted to this man who was as capable as he was kind since my first days in the guild. Truly, I didn't wish to be a source of vexation for him, but the wish alone was not enough. I have neither the experience nor the skill to be worthy of A rank, so I cannot accept your recommendation. Races are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest, on paper at least. Its members are the very face of its beloved organization, and as such ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So, how had I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? I spared no effort in working to hone my craft in the years I had joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a doe-eyed newcomer. But to have my name among the greats of the guild? Absolutely not. But after turning down my first recommendation, a second one had come from the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. If you ask me, you got both in spades. Is something else making you lead towards a no? Zin's awkward smile told me I had been pressured by headquarters. Told me he had been pressured by headquarters to persuade me. I folded my arms. Setting aside whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, there is. I would very much like to not stand out any more than I already do. Been getting offers to be a model, to star in films. It's been, frankly, exhausting forcing them to give up. Now what do you think would happen if I were to accept a promotion? I'd be neck deep in the same mess all over again. Haha, okay, that makes sense, but sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in the beauty and bronze department. Trying to lay low's a lost cause. With the kind of fans you're getting, maybe you should consider the silver screen after all. Who knows, you might walk away with an award from the film festival. Zin's laugh was hearty in contrast to my unamused frown. Much as I respected him, he could do with showing a little more decorum. It's not funny. I understand being in the public eye to some extent is inevitable, but I've never accepted it. But I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. Wasn't trying to be funny, though. You gotta find a way to let off some steam, or you're going to break when we need to put you together the most. Happens to the workaholics like you more often than you think. I didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied, but I also couldn't deny there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We were getting off topic. Just why is headquarters so desperate for me to become an A-rank racer? I can't see the logic behind it. Well, you see. Starting with what you know, the reparations from Erebonia have beefed up our economy this year, so all kinds of new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now, I'm no economist, but people go where the money's at, and where people go, conflict follows. That's just how it is. I saw where he was going from there, electing to expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between mega corporations and a stark increase in Jaeger activity. These are in addition to the known growth of private military companies and increased tensions between mafias. You got it. Think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse from here. That's why Le Mans wants to up security while promoting you, our rising star. They see it as good PR for the guild and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Perhaps I was more vaguely aware of their goal in using me than I wanted to admit. This didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. If they have you asking me to play my part, then surely they have already asked you to play your part already. You've been recommended for S rank, haven't you? If you know a better deterrent than having an S rank in Calvard, then I'd like to hear it. Zin scratched the back of his head awkwardly upon my statement. I just don't think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Bright. S isn't even an official rank, and even if it was, just look at me. You think a guy like me's the picture-perfect advertisement for the guild? I think you have the skills, achievements, and the build to be one, yes. A curt, quick response. Alright, point made. I can't force you to take the recommendation, and I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just let me know if you change your mind, okay? With that, the conversation came to an end, and the guild's bracers gathered to begin our routine meeting of delegating open requests. This is how I preferred things. It was better to stay like this. There was a point when I wanted to be something more. I can no longer remember when that was. Sometime during my childhood it happened, I'm sure. I just recall realizing how small the world truly was. So I prayed and longed to become someone I was not. It was around high school when I thought I became that someone. Those years were unforgettable. I'll never forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, or the priceless treasure that I had gained. A truly thought I had gotten closer to who I wanted to be. But in the end, it was just wishful thinking. My hand, once held, was now empty, and I was still a nobody. But I refused to stand still. I grew unrelenting in following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however. I no longer possessed that girlhood desire of becoming something more, of becoming someone. I just needed to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. Well, aren't we looking gorgeous today? With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. He was a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules and never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. He reminded me much of the Crossbell City branch's receptionist from the few times I visited for work. The place was nearly empty today. I sat down on the counter seat farthest from the doors as he approached. The usual, sweetheart? I stopped by here after a hard day's work on the occasion, and whenever I did, I always ordered coffee and a light snack. This was not a coffee and light snack kind of day. I want something with alcohol, even beer will do. Not at all fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. It wasn't long before he returned and placed an elegant glass in front of me. I think this is a little more you than a beer. It was a beautiful cocktail comprised of two colours, a clear blue like that of a priceless sapphire, and a calming jade. No doubt he could tell how disquieted my heart was and was trying to soothe it in his own way. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach the other reason for my coming. Have you learned anything more about what I asked? Apart from being a skilled bartender, he was also a well-known informant. He was extremely well connected to the guild, to the press, and even the criminal underworld, but he was very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. I wish that I could say yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. Still, I think you've got your eyes on the right district. It's only a matter of time before they get smoked out. I see. Since the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he would better point me in the right direction, but it seems this was going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things will work out, just pace yourself and keep at it a little bit at a time. This also applies to that cocktail. It's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I tilted the glass delicately between my fingers. As he stepped away, my mind continued to wade through the case I was following. There'd been a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market. Not just any drugs either, but the ones of a highly addictive, dangerous variety. Heiwe, who effectively ruled over the criminal underworld in Calvard, ordinarily limited their proliferation in the market as part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs was, of course, far from the ideal elimination of them, but none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet the past few years had seen a worrying number of criminal groups rebelling against these carefully curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market. And all of this held a presumed connection to two missing people. The guild and police had been tasked with searching for two children below the age of 10, a boy and his younger sister. They simply left the house one day and not been seen since. Evidence suggested they came from a perfectly ordinary family on good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. We mulled over the suspicion that they had been abducted for ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following their disappearance, so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. Their last known location was fortunately established, and it was unfortunately a popular site for illicit drug trade. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed the transaction and were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, then the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater the danger their lives were in. The abductors wouldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave trace evidence behind, but it was only a matter of time before they resorted to that or trafficking abroad to get rid of them. With each passing second, the odds of the children being returned unharmed were dropping to zero. At the same time, all of this was pure speculation on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. The potential dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task, but if there was no evidence to go on, action was impossible. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on site and make them talk, should we wish it, but that would be a direct violation of the Guild's code and its founding principles. The Bracer Guild always sought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. If only the strict adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes, thereby putting the people we swore to protect in danger. It was the ultimate impasse. As I found myself pondering on this impossible dilemma the Bracers had placed themselves in, a familiar face came to mind. He was a childhood friend with blue-tinged unkempt hair. Though we had lost contact with one another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he had left it. Soon after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many an unscrupulous individual, or so I believed. Just what did that idiot think he was doing? He walked out of my life without warning and walked back in, much the same. I'd spent so much time searching for him, I knew our reunion would be an awkward one based on how we parted, but for him to return after all that waiting, all that searching, and dive into some questionable enterprise so different from my own, was almost too much to bear. It gave rise to many concerns as a bracer, and many more concerns as a friend. And the one that bothered me most was, why hadn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irritation building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, but the alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. They burned brighter and brighter still, becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then, just as quickly as it had flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why did you leave me? The words slipped from my mouth without me realizing it, making me feel downright pitiful once they were said. Someone were to see me in this sad state. You still haven't moved on, I see. A familiar but unexpected voice called out to me, causing me to jump slightly from surprise. I quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. My response feigned calmness as best I could. I couldn't help but think I had more than a few choice words, really, but following up with that would aid my annoyance in a way that I would rather not further. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right, of course you would see right through me. The bespectacled man then sat down next to me, as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was lamenting over, and someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either of us. If it's still bothering you that much, why not just go and see him? You already have his address by now, surely. How could I, with how much time that's passed? As I mumbled my response meekly, I thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. Well then, I suppose there's no need to rush things with your lines of work. I'm sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. I didn't expect that kind of response. You make it sound so romantic. Lest you have forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Now, since we're here, how about a toast? I'll make your next one non-alcoholic. Lest you have forgotten, I can handle my liquor just fine, thank you very much. We then spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It had been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. It wasn't that he and I had become estranged, but both of our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. By the way, I've heard word that you turned down becoming an A-ranked bracer again. Of course that wouldn't escape the CID's ears. The information itself wasn't confidential, but that he already knew something, however unofficial it was entirely typical of him. The Bracer Guild focused on protecting civilians, while the CID focused solely on the needs of the President in office. The groups were neither enemies nor allies, they simply had very different goals where work was concerned. I know it isn't my place to tell you to accept the offer, however... He paused before resuming, his tone becoming markedly more serious. The times we live in demand a new hero, that much is clear. I had no idea what a realist like him was trying to say by implying I was a hero. But before I could inquire further, he changed to the subject that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. Now, if you don't mind, I have something that will be of interest to you regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change. He continued. We've identified the group that made the district their turf, as well as have compelling evidence of a crime taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. I couldn't believe it. On a fine silver platter he had given me just cause to act, and since the information came from the CID, there was no reason to doubt its veracity. I felt it. I was on the verge of rekindling my girlhood desires. All I had done till now was to follow life where it was taking me. And yet, here I found myself before a new path that would lead to that someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. What if it led to me losing someone again? What if it ended in more pain? My fear begged me to stay idle. I was a fragile human being at my core. I knew it well. Made me wish I was anything but. It inspired me to take up the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. But if I were forced to face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? As I sidestepped to the left, I shifted my centre of gravity and unleashed a fury of slashes against my first foe, using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade towards the second. Two low-ranking mobsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I had been chasing, and right now I was in the thick of their den of operation. Excuse me, just had to cough quite a bit. My friend gave the guild and police the excuse we needed to take a more direct stance against our targets. His information was vague, however, so we still had to discern their precise location on our own. I, Zin, and several other bracers agreed it would be best to split our forces and attack several locations in unison for this part of our mission. Based on what just transpired, it appears my location was the lucky winner. Here's the intruder. Hey, I've seen her before. She's from the paper. Two more reinforcements arrived, but it was hardly going to give them time to act. I raced forward, swinging my sword twice as I passed them, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced, mobsters appeared in droves, presumably word of my arrival had already spread. There she is. She's that bracer whose word's been going around about. Oh damn it, what if the immovables here too? Don't be chicken shit. It's one woman, we can take care of her. They then charged me en masse, at least 10 of them, with more reinforcements on their way from further inside the building. Forcing my way through with how many they had in their number was risky. I knew the sensible thing to do would be to wait for the other bracers to show, but I also had to consider, what if my waiting afforded the Mafia the time to wield the children as hostages? Weighing the two options, I concluded that whatever reduced the chances of that happening was worth the cost. I need to push on and settle this, now. Besides, I believed I had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. Were they seasoned combat veterans, they could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me, but they did no such thing, the amateurs. And they dared to believe they held a candle to Heiwe's martial arts? In the face of one of my experience, their bloated size was more of a hindrance than a heart, than help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. I first had to position myself and them appropriately. If I could ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up the close-range fighters into a single spot, they would soon have bigger warriors. Friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down. 1 down, 2 down. Their precious seconds after defeating a foe were the most advantageous. Just as a man had fallen, I was onto another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. There was no pattern to who was next by design. I chose my targets with stunning erraticism, throwing them into complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. 3 down, 4. I would go around them in a wide circle. I would move between them, while remaining ever aware of any surprise assaults at my back. I waited through them till I encountered the ones farthest back. These ones never even considered I would be able to reach them, they were spread so carelessly. The men took up their guns with newly alert panic strewn across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were powerless as I closed the gap between us. 5, 6, 7. With over half their number down, the remaining mobsters were quickly losing their will to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation, calculating their next move so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. At this point, the battle was as good as final. All I had to do was continue taking them down till I was the last one standing. There were smaller groups I encountered on my way through the building, but I was able to disable them with little effort. The path they opened up for me eventually led me to their leader. It was a middle-aged fellow pacing restlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room till I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me. Why are you here? Where are my men? Kissing the floors. I answered so calmly and concisely that he balked in disbelief. That's impossible. I sweat my balls off to build this group from the ground up, and you're saying a girl, like you, tore it all down just like that. I ignored his crude language and drew closer. As I thrust my sword till it sat between his eyes, he let out a squeal. Well, I'm no ordinary girl, I'm a bracer. And don't worry, I didn't kill them. They have only been knocked out or restrained. You'll be seeing them again soon, in prison. I shot a darkened glare in his direction as the tip of my sword wandered down to his neck. Now, I have some questions for you, and you will answer them. The man nodded empathetically, his whole body trembling in fear. Two children, a boy and a girl under 10 years old, disappeared last month. Your people abducted them, didn't they? He nodded. I knew it. Then where are they? What did you do to them? They're in a room further inside. They're alive. At last I could breathe a sigh of relief. My most fundamental objective when coming here could be fulfilled. Next, I needed to ask him more about his group. I thought you all seemed far too weak to be charged of this district of the city, but after coming across your account book, everything fell into place. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you? He was so unsure of how to respond that he fell completely silent, but that alone gave me my answer. Who is it then? Tell me. Is it A? I can't. He flinched in fear as I pressed him, resisting though he genuinely couldn't say. Then, just as he opened his trembling lips to speak, I heard a strange thudding sound from outside the room. I stepped away from the man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, squelching, splattering. More sounds, these more audible than the first. I didn't know what to make of them, but they made me feel an instinctive revulsion as they dragged on. They may have come accompanied by faint groans, but if they did, they faded just as soon as the sounds themselves. I remained on guard as I stepped out into the hallway, ready to be attacked from any angle at any moment. And the sight that greeted me defied all imagination. The mobsters I fought through mere minutes before were now nothing more than distorted, mutilated piles of flesh and bone. Not just one or two, every single one of them, without exception, had been reduced to bloodied mounds. Some were without heads, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens. Then there were those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter, or the ones with their hearts pulled out and squeezed. Each corpse was different, each corpse was unbearable to look at. The plain hallway I had traversed with all due speed was now covered in a sticky, slimy red. Who could have done something like this? The sight was so awful that my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When was it ever necessary to go this far? What could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no. I realized I had just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back to the room I was just in. I was too late. The Mafia leaders was floating in the air at the center of the room, as though by some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monstrous sword pierced through his chest, a single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallway, he didn't even have time to scream before his life was taken. Who are you? I barked at the center of the room, trying to drown out my instinctive fear with anger. At a glance, only the corpse and I were present, but if I strained my eyes, I could also see the faint contours of another distorting the space around them. It must have been some form of active camouflage. I would have thought it basic courtesy to give your name before asking another's. Charming ace of the Bracer Guild. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though he were above all others as a matter of course. I instinctively readied myself for a battle in response, but my action seemed not to faze him in the slightest. No need to be spoiling for a fight, I'm simply here to take out the trash after they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow. Was I really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms? Are you a business partner of theirs? No, you must be from the group above them. Very good. Then he swung his blade to the side and tossed the corpse off to the side with all the respect of a used cigarette. How could you treat people you worked with like this? People? Have you your ears? I said nothing about taking out a person, only trash. The same applies to the garbage piling up in the hallway. They have always been so. even before they stopped breathing. It was clear that communicating with someone of this nature was impossible. I dismissed calm reason for all intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body couldn't stop trembling. You monster. Before I knew it, I had sprung into action, spouting every drop of my strength into my blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. But he repelled it with one vertical swing of his own. This one exchange was enough to tell me that his strength was well a league above mine. He parried my blow at the most perfect instant, cancelling out the force of my attack with so little effort that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The act of camouflage did nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either. Designed, combed silver and black, in an unholy fusion of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. Even if I continued to give it my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim. But at the same time, my instincts were screaming at me that I could not allow him to leave. I charged again. If attacking him from the front wasn't going to work, then I'd have to go for his side. He blocked that attack with just as little effort. But I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two. I showered him in a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. When I finally reached my physical limit, I darted in a new direction, attacking from behind. Put my very soul into one overwhelming attack aimed directly at his rear, which I could only just make out through his camouflage's distortion. I got him! However, the second I became sure that victory was within my grasp, his cruciform blade carved a great arc through the ear in a ferocious spinning slash. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow, but the force of it sent me flying backwards. I was fortunate enough to not have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced myself back to my feet and glared at his form. The difference between us was night and day. It felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the true nature of all things. Paid no mind to my pitiful attempt at bravado, and gave a short laugh before speaking. Impressive. You put up more of a fight than the rumors had led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? I expected him to reject or ignore me, so I was taken aback when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering. Interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? I almost doubted my ears. Fear is at the heart of what we know: domination and servitude, order, harmony, and production. All of it exists because of fear. That's why I seek to instill fear in its purest form, much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. There was such pleasure in his words that it made it easy to imagine the expression on his veiled face. As insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster. Continue your fruitless attempts to stop me, and you'll understand what I mean in due time. He lowered his blade. As a parting gift for assisting me in my house-cleaning efforts, I'll let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Bracer. With that, he turned to leave. Wait. Oh god, I knocked my whole desk. Just as I extended my hand, the ground below him emitted a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. He had likely used the same teleportation spell that certain other criminal organizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength I had left in me, not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on to do because I couldn't stop him, that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day you left me. Still the same powerless girl I was back then. My work here wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room. I opened the door and was greeted by what appeared to be an old storage space. There, across the hall, I found who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor as his sister stood close by. "It's okay, I'm here to help you." I kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled while her older brother continued to hide his face. I walked slowly towards them, careful not to make any sudden movements, but as I did, the boy shook his head vigorously. His whole body trembled more the closer I got, as though he were telling me to stay away. The answer from that man flashed in my mind. Fear is at the heart of all we know. These poor children were very much in fear's clutches. No matter how gradual I was in closing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke him, his body language showed he continued to reject me. We were now within arm's length of one another. His shaking grew more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. "It's all right," I smiled a most comforting smile. After that, I reached out behind me and grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust towards me. I turned swiftly, my fingers never letting go, and found the one gripping the hilt to be none other than the sister. She had tiptoed around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother and tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by my halting her attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, emotion on her face nowhere to be seen. I suppose he was right about fear. It controls everything we do. You must have been through something terrifying if it made you resort to this. No doubt they were now conditioned by fear to attack anyone who came to their rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hand slowly dripping to the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. My first priority instead was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. But we humans are capable of more than giving in to fear. We can fight it. With courage, we can fight it. Your brother was doing just that now. He may have been gripped by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me to the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and keep her from committing an irreversible, regrettable act. It was thanks to him that I noticed what she was trying to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer, I'll keep you safe. I took the girl into my arms. You're a bracer? Even her voice was devoid of emotion. That's right, I'm here to help you. Oh, I think I've seen you in a magazine before. Something Blade, I think. That's right, the nickname is a little embarrassing, but I'd be happy if you remembered it. That way, as long as you hear it, you know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. I tightened my grip around hers, as if to stop anything more from hurting her and surrounding her heart with my warmth. It really will be okay, I promise. I noticed her eyes twitch just slightly, and before long her eyes filled with tears. Soon she began to sniffle, at first a small one here and there, till they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning into uncontrollable sobs. She had finally been liberated from her fear. As for me, I had stayed my course. I was too afraid to deviate from my current path. Still, I had chosen this path with pride in my heart. I didn't think it right to turn my back on it now, but I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, it was another day in the Edith branch of Calvard's guild. Sounds like that Mafia was trying to copy what that other organization of assassins managed to pull off. I was discussing the recent case with Zin. Their siblings had indeed been abducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. The Mafia involved then fought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with the intent of turning them into professional killers. Their attempts, thankfully, proved as unsuccessful as their attempts to remain covert in selling drugs. The CID found them, and whoever they were working for purged them. Hell of a way to go. If I hadn't been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all. Don't beat yourself up about it. The guild's priority is to keep civilians safe, not criminals. I don't want to say they deserved it for getting involved in organised crime, but it is what it is. Try putting that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat you alive. I was told that while the siblings were going to need psychological counselling for some time, they were fully expected to recover and go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside of me. I came to realise that something needed to change, that I had to take some kind of step forward. Even if it ended in me falling to the floor in some dramatic fashion, I just needed to pick myself back up again. With that in mind, I accepted my multiple recommendations. The times we live in demand a new hero. Doing so made me think of what my childhood friends said to me. I don't believe I had what it took to be a hero. But if I could be even just a brief one able to give the people hope and banish the darkness ahead, then that was reason enough to keep going. Maybe that could make somebody enough to fight alongside the real hero once they came to light. Well, shall we get down to business? Zin turned to face me, his classic broad grin even broader than usual. It'll be a while longer before official paperwork arrives from headquarters, but I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process with how much they wanted this. The Republic now has a bracer who reached A rank, at the same age as the Empire's Purple Lightning. Congrats on your promotion, Elaine Euclair, Beauty's Blade. Oh, guessing that's a character for Kuro. Suspension of causality recording union activity confirmed. Force connection to astral link severed. The whirlpool of causality engulfing Erebos in the fated land has at last been unravelled. Though the bell ringing and the end of the days has yet to be silenced, you, children of Zemuria, have earned your moment of peace until the time comes to face the final hour. Until you, with hope and fear in your hearts, must walk new trails. Well, that's that for Trails into Reverie. amazing. It has been how many? 132 hours. Amazing. So I guess no stream tomorrow, no stream during the weekend, and I will try to get back to a more variety or varied schedule for the coming week. Thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me on this incredibly long journey that I've been very, very happy to go through. And I hope to see you again for hopefully some shorter journeys this time. Not gonna lie, the game can kind of overstay its welcome just a little bit. If you like stuff like this, feel free to leave a comment in the replies. And yeah, that's about it. I'm probably going to do more JRPG stuff like this. I think it's just in my nature at this point. Once again, thank you for watching. Bye bye.